Ein weiteres Spiel, das wir auf der Gamescom in Köln für euch ausprobieren konnten, ist Lego World. And Chris, if I look back at my own childhood, I remember playing with Lego bricks. And I think the younger generation now plays with Minecraft bricks, and now basically both is coming together. Is that something you could say?
We wouldn't necessarily go that far with it. We've always been pretty keen to have a digital Lego building experience. We've always wanted to do something like this in the past, and now the opportunity's come up for us to actually get a team together and make this a really, really good game. We've loved playing with Lego, like I did as a child, and obviously yourself. So the first to have the chance now to do this is absolutely brilliant.
So, you know, you were on Steam Early Access for a year,
yes.
And I think internally you've been playing the game for a lot longer than that. Do you still remember what was the first thing that you built?
The first thing I built was a house, and it's actually still saved on my laptop today. It's a small hut made of red and black bricks, and it was the first text version I actually had of the game, and I've always managed to keep the file.
And, you know, when I look back at building things with Lego, that was really easy, just stack them on top of each other. But, you know, going into the tools and everything you can do with a video game, are you going to include some sort of tutorial to get players, you know, into the game?
We are keen to make sure that we give them some sort of introduction so they can learn the tools without being sort of overwhelmed at the beginning, because at the moment it's just you're thrown in the game and it's just figure it out for yourself. We do want to do something where we sort of ease them in. One thing we want to do is make sure that they understand the new tools that we have in place, like the discovery tool and how that works. So it's pretty, I wouldn't say necessarily tutorial, but more some sort of starting area where you learn the basics on a very small world first, and then you sort of build up into the big ones.
And it's basically the first Lego game that does not include a story at all, but you do still have some sort of quests in order to unlock things and characters. How does that work?
So what we wanted to make sure we did was that if you did want to be creative, you've still got the tools to do so. So you get these tools pretty early on in the game, you get lots of bricks, there's no resource management. However, some people do want the adventure side of things. So when you go through, you will meet various characters or creatures or monsters, and you have to do something to unlock them that makes sense to that character. So for the Yeti, you need to give him an ice lolly. For the king, you need to give him his golden sword so he can run around and attack the dragon wizards. So it's kind of a system where if you want to be creative, absolutely fine. If you want to go and do the adventure at the same time, there's loads of things out there for you to discover and to use to make your creations even better.
And if we're talking size, how big is the map, maybe in terms of bricks, and in terms of how long does it take you to traverse it, you know, walk from one corner to the other one?
The last time I tried to run from one side to the other, I think it took me about a good 20 or so minutes to go from one side to the other, because I have to go over the hills and the mountains. When I actually went through the sky, I think it was about 15 minutes or so. We actually measured them in the studs, which are on top of the bricks themselves, and the last count, I believe, was well over 40,000. It probably is higher now, to be honest.
And we already said that the game is on Steam Early Access for a year now, and I think a lot of the game has changed over the past few months. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit on the things that you had while the game originally launched, what you did change, and what are the plans for the future? What are you going to change next?
Sure, so the biggest two updates I would say so far is we released online multiplayer back in July. That was very successful. We're now up to 4-player multiplayer. That was a huge demand. Everyone was desperate for us to have multiplayer. So originally we said that we would put that in at the very end, but the demand was so great we said, okay, let's get it in the game in its earlier state, and people are loving it. The second biggest update has actually come from community feedback and sort of the response we've had from certain changes that we have made. The UI is completely different to how it launched 12 months ago. So in the corner we used to have like a rolling menu that you would select what you wanted to do then. We then changed it to a simple click box, and now we've changed it once again to this radial game wheel that you'll now see in the newer version when the next update comes out. So it's been a massive amount of UI changes, which has been good because it means that we've deliberately gone out of our way on early access to talk to people and say, what do you like, what don't you like? So things like vehicle controls, people weren't really too happy with the vehicle controls, so we said, okay, we'll change that. We added a first-person camera. We never really intended to do that, but the demand was so great. We said, well, okay, let's give them the first-person camera, and people have used them. So it's, you know, it shows that we are listening, and also they're right. We should be listening.
Do you also have a time frame when the finished version of the game is going to be out, and which platforms are you going to address?
So we're only working on the PC version. We don't have any other versions currently planned or announced or anything like that. We know we're going to be in 2017 in early access still, so for the rest of 2016 absolutely we're in early access, and we haven't really nailed down an exact date yet. We're just taking the most advantage if we can out of the early access community.
And you said there are so many options that which people can build, so much stuff to do. What are the limits of the game? Are there any known limits, stuff that people, can't just do yet, but that you want to include?
In terms of building, not necessarily. I mean, there's discussions on how many more bricks could we add to the game, because we don't have every single Lego brick, because there's thousands of them. So, and it's not always that easy to put them in, especially the really tiny or intricate pieces. But we are looking to add more bricks to the game. We think it's important that we try and keep that diversity going. We've added more during the early access phase, so it makes sense we would keep doing that if we can. We want to add more sort of core features to the game as well. So one of the things we're demoing here at Gamescom is randomly generated towns. Every once in a while you'll be in your world and a town will just pop up in front of you. It could be really small, it could be really big. And then we also want to use that to introduce like a dungeon system. Same tech, but under the ground instead, so you fall into this really, really cool dungeon. So it gives you a bit more of that adventure theme that we're trying to go for as well.
And can you only build one world, or can you save and build multiple worlds that you can, work on with different groups of friends?
You can build as many worlds as your hard drive can fit, is the best way to describe it. And in fact, we had one user, he came and met us at an event recently, and he had a 270 gig save file. So that took a while to download for us, but it was unbelievable, some of the stuff he had in there, so it was well worth it. So, and I think he had hundreds of worlds.
So the game is $14.99 in Steam Early Access. Is this the final price for the game? Will people who bought the Early Access version already get the finalized version of the game, or will that be different? Do you plan to include microtransactions or paid DLC, free DLC? What are the plans for the future?
So there's no microtransactions, we're not doing that. Certainly not planning to do that, that's for certain. What we do want to do is make sure that when the game's finished that we don't just stop making it, we want to keep adding new stuff every time to it. So we won't just release it and be done, we will add new things for free to the game as well. We haven't really thought about DLC, it's too early to think about DLC and things like that. We are pretty sure we need to get this game first, and then we'll start talking about the other stuff as well. Regards to the price, we're still trying to decide what we want to do with that. We haven't raised it at all yet, and we thought we would by now, but we think it's actually at a good price for an early access title, and it's only fair that people are with us at its worst, so that they should be there when it's at its best. They should already have it, and if you've already bought the game, you own the game. Even when the game's finished, you own the game.
So great for talking to us. Thanks a lot, and have a great Gamescom.
Thank you very much, and you.
Bye.
Take care.